Hello guys, in this video I'm gonna go over a few things about SolarCity and I'm in the process of acquiring SolarCity's PPA agreement and putting solar panels in the house and purchasing electricity from them, and I would like to document this process as we go along. I'll update with more videos to show how everything worked out and what my feedback is on that based on their performance. All right, so just for an introduction, what is SolarCity? SolarCity is basically the number one solar panel company at this point that they not only just sell solar panels, they also have other plans that are much more economical. Basically what it is they maintain and own the solar panels while you only pay for the electricity the solar panel generates. You might wonder how that can be beneficial. The short answer is if they own the system and if they're only selling electricity to us, which basically means they have to maintain the system in top-notch condition for them to make a profit because they're only selling the electricity, and it's in their best interest to give us the best service throughout the contract term so we get the maximum amount of electricity generated, and that's how it operates. It's called the PPA plan, which basically means power purchase agreement, and all we are doing is purchasing power from them. Anyway, the initial process is to contact SolarCity. It could be one of two ways. So this is step one, where the customer meets SolarCity. It can either be done through a SolarCity rep. You'd see them all over the place, like Home Depot and other stores, where they have their employees basically, trying to sell you and educate you on solar panels. I talked to one of them, and a person didn't seem that well knowledgeable in terms of all the electrical stuff that goes on. But at the same time, from the perspective of explaining how the plan works, yeah, he was fine with that. That's step one. And step two is basically the rep, a sales rep, comes into your house, sits with you for hours together, explaining the process and how it works and all that stuff. So basically he would do a preliminary inspection of the house. Basically he'll do a walk around, and this is my house, and he basically walks around, checks the roof, the slope of the roof. Mine is a 20% slope, which is basically from here to here, the angle, how steep it is, and it's a pretty ideal condition for solar panels. And also he checks the shingle conditions and all that stuff. As you can see here, let me just go up. So the shingles, they basically look for if there's any shingle popping up like this. As you can see, nothing is popping up in this roof. And if these things are popping up, then it may not be economical for them to put solar panels in there, because you would want to re-roof anyway. And also they look for how good the adhesion of this sand thing is with the roof shingles, and if it's all good, they would basically give a green light, and the next step goes on. So this is the roof I'm going to be installing solar panels in, and we will talk a little bit more about how do we decide how many panels and all that. So basically the rep comes in and will ask for your electric bill to do an assessment. So this is a sample of the electric bill. If you look way on the bottom here, let me try to focus on this a little better. There you go. So it'll show you the annual usage in kilowatt hour. So in my case, the annual usage is 8,653 kilowatt hour. What basically it means is how much electricity I've used in a year. And what SolarCity does is basically design the system based on that number. What they will do is they'll try to design a system that will be 95% of that number. So your system will produce up to 95% of that power, which basically here, if it's 8653, they'll try to make it as close to 8200 range to make sure most of the electricity you generate comes from solar panel at that point. And there are various factors that dictate how much your house can generate. One major thing is the orientation of the house. In my case, my house, the south is over there. It's not directly facing the south, but it gets close enough. Here's the west, so it's the house is kind of facing southeast, and they calculated, and my house offset comes pretty good, where it can produce way more than that 8,000 kilowatt that we are hoping for. So why do they cap it at 95%? Because any energy you produce over your consumption basically goes to waste. In other words, your electrical company will get all the electricity that you produce from you because it's tapped into the meter, but based on your local jurisdiction rules, it's not going to be reimbursed. In other words, they're not going to pay you. The only way they pay you here, at least in Maryland, is with BG&D, is they offset certain months extra production into the other months that you don't produce much. Every month you produce less. If there are winter months where you produce only 300 kilowatt hour, and what happens is you can borrow from that bank. So they do this up to a year, and it goes from April to April, and at the end of the April of the first year, it basically expires, whatever is left in there. So designing a system that's 95% adequate is kind of important. So bottom line, this number dictates what your 95% usage would be, and they'll design a system around that. So mine is a pretty average family home with enough consumption. So we have gas furnace and gas water heater. So not taking that into consideration, the normal electricity bill, you see, basically, it's like $75 to $120 based in the AC months. And if you look at it, that's how they calculate the whole ordeal of things. 530 this month, and all these charges are based on that 530. So even though they say they sell it at 11 cents or something, technically, if you add it up all the ones, it'll come to 13 cents, usually 2 cents more than what you would actually pay. Getting back to the SolarCity rep's responsibility is he basically designs this system in SketchUp. If you're not familiar with that, it's Google's 3D software. So he'll put a satellite image and basically go over your roof to estimate and see how many panels and in what orientation, horizontal, vertical, based on things like these vents. You put more solar panels here. So virtually in the computer, he'll design all that. And just to give you an idea, each panel basically, for every kilowatt, you need like 4 panels. Okay, so 4 to 5 panels. So if you're designing a system, in my case, I need a system that is 8.5 kilowatt system, which basically takes about 32 panels, let's say. Just multiply that times 4 or 5, 32 to 40 panels range. This is a measuring day in SolarCity here to measure everything, including the roof, windows, and all sorts of work around electrical panel, internet router, everything. They're just making sure everything is in place for their infrastructure to tap into. It's a pretty cool device. Does a 360 off the roof. Okay, this is the roof. And there's a dish on one side, and there's nothing else here. So it's easy to put panels on the front. On the back, one vent over there, and couple of other vents. He's measuring now a couple of other small vents on this side. So that's the roof with the ridge vent on top. Plenty of space for solar panels without interruptions. Alright, here we have SolarCity's site surveyor, and let me ask him a couple of questions. So could you please explain what your purpose for here today is?
What happens is I show up to the house, I take a whole bunch of photos around the outside of the house, I hop up on the roof and take my measurements on top of the roof, then I'll come inside and go into your attic and take a whole bunch of photos up there. I'll go down to the electrical panel, take the front off the electrical panel, take photos of your internet router, your hot water heater, and your furnace. And then I ship off all my design stuff from the truck. They're going to get back to you within 5 business days with an image of what it's all going to look like and all the hard numbers. If you like what you see, you sign, and it's on to step 4.
All right, a couple of quick questions.
Yes.
What is the significance of taking pictures of the hot water heater and the furnace?
The hot water heater and the furnace is just for a simple energy audit that we do. If you do have electric and hot water heater and furnace, then it gets figured into the numbers when we get back to you.
Cool. And I assume the router picture is for your SolarCity app and stuff.
Yeah. It's just to make
seamless.
sure there's an open Ethernet port.
Gotcha. And in the electrical panel, you're basically looking for an empty spot.
We're looking for an empty spot. I check to see if there's any blackened, like if the box is blackened, check to see if everything's up to code.
Okay, and on the roof survey, is there any conditions that you would say it's not acceptable?
It's not acceptable if if the roof flexes down like an inch or two between the beams, or if there's 3 or more layers of shingles.
All right, gotcha. Thanks a lot.
No problem.